We have some gaps in here also because some other cases settled. Good afternoon, sir. Are you Todd Werner?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'm Judge Middleton. You're here for a landlord-tenant case that we'll address here in a few minutes. Seems like we did this just a while ago, but I'm going to advise you once again of your rights as a tenant in a landlord-tenant proceeding. As a defendant in a landlord-tenant proceeding, including non-payment of rent, you have the following legal rights. You have the right to obtain counsel for representation in this matter. If you cannot afford an attorney, a legal aid attorney may be available to help you. You have a right to a trial by a jury or by the court. If the action is for non-payment of rent, and if you are eligible for any housing assistance, you may not need the judgment to get that housing assistance. The summons and complaint may be sufficient. If the plaintiff is agreeable, the Citizens Mediation Services, Inc. may be available as a possible source of case resolution. If both parties are agreeable to mediation, you can call the court and we can set that up. If you do reach an agreement with the plaintiff for settlement and a consent judgment is entered by the court, you would waive the rights listed above, but have the following additional rights. The judgment may not be enforced until 3 business days had passed. You could move to set aside the judgment within those 3 days if you misunderstood what you consented to or what you were waiving. Your motion to set aside the judgment would be set for a landlord-tenant hearing, but if the judge, namely me, did not find in your favor, the original judgment would stand. Your manager, Ms. Matson, is here. And Mr. Thornton, the attorney for the apartment complex, will sign in here any minute. But I thought we'd use this time to go through your rights.
Understand.
Mr. Thornton filed an accounting sheet with me saying that through March, you owe $1,112 and utilities of $41.88 plus court costs of $182.72. So basically, you're in the March period, which is pretty good. I had a guy just a minute ago that hasn't paid rent since June of last year, and obviously that's a problem, but we'll make sure that's all still correct. Ms. Matson, as far as you know, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Actually, we're not up for 9 more minutes, but as soon as Lance logs in, we'll address this. We have a few gaps in the proceeding because some of the cases that were scheduled today have been dismissed because they've either paid or moved out. So we set things every 10 minutes, but which essentially makes everything take an hour longer than it would otherwise. Instead of going right from one case to the next and reading everybody the rights all at the same time, have to do it all separately. We have to do it all twice. Good afternoon, Mr. Thornton.
Good afternoon.
You're a little early, but so is everybody else. I've already gone through the advice of rights with Mr. Werner. Ms. Matson confirmed that the numbers you gave me are still accurate. So, Mr. Werner, the allegation is that you owe March's rent of some of it, $1,012.33 plus $41.88. So you must have paid some on this. What's your plan? Do you plan to stay there or plan to move?
I plan to stay here and pay rent, Your Honor.
Very good. Do you have a tax refund coming or anything?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Your Honor, I do. There was a garnishment levied on my taxes, which kind of messed things up. That should be resolved shortly, but I mean, I'm working, so I plan on paying rent. It's just been rough with inflation.
Yes, for everybody. Well, the law requires I continue this for 1 week. And that will give us 7 more days. And then you'd have 10 days from that day to pay the rent. And then we would also be into April. So there'd be another month's rent due for April. I just set that for about 15.
Well, Your Honor, hours have picked up at work. Rent will be paid next week for March, and then April will be paid after that.
Very good. All right, well, let's continue this to March 24th. Lance, I don't think you're here. Wait a minute.
March
You're
24th.
on, no.
It's open for me though, Your Honor.
All right, how about 10:50?
That works.
All right, Mr. Werner, if you pay the rent and everything is current, you don't even need to appear next week. If not, we'll address it further. And then I would give you an additional 10 days to pay the rent. But then we would add in April's rent because that would go into April's rental period. But we'll continue this till next Friday at 10:50. Rent, utilities, and the costs are $1,236, which is essentially about March's rent of $1,255. So if you get that paid, you're good to go. This is one of the more expensive. In fact, I think it's the most expensive apartment rental housing in the county. They're nice units and they're expensive, but if you get it paid, we're all good to go. We don't need to be here. If it isn't paid, we'll address it further, and I would give you 10 additional days to pay the rent or be prepared to move. Do you have any questions?
Well, yes, Your Honor, I do. So just so that I understand what you just said, if I pay rent before next Friday, I don't even show up?
Yes, confirm that with Miss Matson, but if everything is paid, you won't need to be there.
Okay, well, that brings a point that February's rent was paid before March, but here I am. And that's what the court paper stated, that this was for February's non-payment.
Well, the problem is at that point, they'd already filed the case. So now March's rent is due. So it takes a while to get these things. By the time they serve the notice to quit, file the paperwork, it gets served and the court schedules it. Yeah, it takes a while. So you've made a payment, which has changed the numbers, but this is quite common if it laps from one month into the next one. But if you pay March's rent, it'll also cover all at 12/36. You don't need to be here. Otherwise,
Okay,
we'll discuss it further and I'll give you 10 more days. All right, thank you, sir.
thank you.
All right, we're still live and we are still recording, but we're ready to go back on the record. Good morning, Mr. Werner. Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Got a
Good morning.
recall file number 2323232 LT. It's entitled Sturgis Place Apartments versus Todd Werner. Mr. Lance Thornton is here on behalf of the apartments. The manager isn't here yet. We're a little early, but that's all right. Mr. Werner is here. We were here last week. This is filed as a demand for non-payment of rent. And we learned that there was some arrearage for March and then utilities and then court costs for a total of $331.93. We're now in another month. After we had the hearing, I thought things went pretty well. Then I got a letter from Mr. Werner, which I shared with Mr. Thornton, and he responded. So everybody's seen what everybody else said, but this is just an issue of paying the rent. Mr. Werner, do you agree that through March you owe $107.33 plus utilities of $41.88 after everything that you have paid?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
The utilities that are owed are not due till April 1st. There are $7.33 in renter's insurance that I don't owe because I'm paying renter's insurance through State Farm, not Stoughton Estates. And there are court costs posted on my account from December 9th. I had court in October and paid that court cost. And how court costs got generated on my account on December 9th, I have no idea how that happened, and I'm not getting an answer as to.
Well, we're not asking for those. They're not asking for $733 for renter's insurance, I don't believe. And the utilities will be due for April, but your move out date is April 3rd. So we've
Move out
included
date.
Well, if you don't pay the rent, you'd be subject to being evicted on or after April 3rd, which is 10 days
Okay.
from today. So the period goes into April. Mr. Thorne, do you have a response to his contention?
Yeah, the court's correct. We're not requesting any insurance. And the December 9th entries for tenant court costs were reversed on January 11th, and a total of $321.40 was credited to Mr. Warner's account at that point, wiping out the two entries for court costs on the 9th of December. So those were credited back to his account. So, and we are requesting, as the court has pointed out, that April rent, although I didn't put it on the info sheet, be added in on the judgment.
All right, let's take a look at that. I forgot what the monthly rent is. The monthly rent is 1,255. That's quite high. 1,255 for April. What's left over? 107.33. is 1,326.33.
I came up with 1,362.33.
Yes, I transposed it when I said it, 1,362. So my calculator says 0.33. 41.88 for the utilities, and the court costs are 182.72. $1,586.93. So essentially, Mr. Werner, all we did is add April's rent and utilities to this through April. There's no insurance cost on here. 1,362.33.
Okay, and I mean, I understand what you are telling me, and on the website that I pay my payments on, these December 9th court costs and this renter's insurance are still on my website of what I owe Stoughton Estates, even though people are telling me I've been credited these dollar amounts still affect my bottom line.
Well, they're not included in this order. Any other attorney fees or arrearages or utilities are not part of this order.
Okay.
So what you need to pay is this amount, 1,586. You're in pretty good shape, but your rent is quite high.
Well, right, which brings my other point. The court document states, which I was paid through December 31st of 22,
Yes.
which Stoughton Estates states that I had to be paid through December in order to get another year's lease. The apartments claimed that I still had a $200 balance into January. And if that's the case, then I wouldn't be paid through December. And that is why I'm paying this extra $100 a month to month deal.
All right, well, let's talk about that. The complaint says rent is paid through January 31st, 2023. That's not
Right.
correct.
Correct.
It should say January 31st, 2022. Your contention is you weren't allowed to re-sign a new lease in December because the complex said you weren't paid up. But according to the pleadings, they show that rent is paid. Now that maybe that's just rent only. And I'll just assume that means December 31st, 2022. So you're saying because you weren't allowed to re-sign a lease in December, your rent went up?
Correct.
Mr. Thornton, what's your response to that?
Actually, I see Maria has joined us. I would like her, I guess, her to respond to that. I think she's more familiar with that issue than me.
Okay, Your Honor, when Mr. Werner sent over the paperwork to you, there was a renewal offer letter that was submitted. And it explains that if he does not renew his lease, that he is subject to a month-to-month fee, which is whatever the current market rent is for that month, for the current month, plus a $100 short-term fee. On 12/28 of 2022 on the ledger, there is a payment of $727, which brought his account balance to $277.70. And that's where he was at the end of the month. That letter was sent to him when that letter was sent to him, there was at one point in time on 10/20 of 22 that he had a zero balance on his account. through the end of October. He never, the only time that he asked me about renewing his lease was in February. And I explained that to him. I have offered numerous times for him to come to the office, and I can show him on the ledger where the charges were taken off, and he's declined.
Okay.
All right, well, you do have 10 days to appeal this also. I'm gonna enter the judgment in the amount as pled. It doesn't feel the rent was paid in full, even though the pleading said it was. But I would suggest, once you get this paid, you get in and get your lease renewed to reduce your overhead. Or if you decide to move, you need to turn in your keys and give your forwarding address within 4 days of your moving. All right, Mr. Werner, I'll send you a copy of that. Do you have any other questions?
What, I'm not gonna get, okay, I didn't ask in February to renew my lease for January, but I'm not gonna, this is getting silly. Enter your judgment. I'm paid up and I'll continue to be paying month to month until I get out of here.
All right, very good. You're good to go.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Mr. Thornton, good morning.
Good morning.
This case has got a somewhat complicated history. Here's the manager, Maria. The title of the case is Sturgis Place Apartments versus Todd Werner. We had a hearing on March 17th. Mr. Werner was here by Zoom. Mr. Thornton and Ms. Matson, the manager, was here. We agree the accounting is still correct. The defendant plans to stay and pay the rent. He has a tax refund coming, and he's going to use his taxes to pay the rent. So we continued the matter until March 24th and had a second hearing. We determined at that time that he owed April's rent, or through April, he owed $1,255, $107.33 in costs, or something. I think that was renter's insurance and something. Anyway, plus court costs, we came up with $1,586.93. And we entered a judgment in that amount. It was due by April 3rd. So we have the hearing. And then Mr. Werner sends me a letter saying, here's all the stuff I didn't tell you in court. Well, that's not very helpful. That was April 9th. And so I forwarded a copy of that to Mr. Thornton and asked him if he would be available this morning for an emergency hearing regarding this matter. He has submitted a application for a writ of eviction, alleging that you have not paid the rent as we agreed on April 24th. I took some time on, March 24th. I took some time on the 17th. I took some time on the 24th. We came up with that number. Then 10 days later, you send me a letter and said, well, wait a minute. So one option was to ignore it. And the other option was to set this emergency hearing. Your contention is that you have paid the rent?
It's not a contention, Your Honor. I sent you my payments. I sent you this, so it's not a contention. It's a fact that took place. I'm not sure where.
Ms. Matson, what can you tell us? Defendant claims that he has paid the judgment amount.
Your Honor, if I could, before Ms. Matson, the facts are pretty simple. Mr. Warner's allegation of paying $13.55 towards the judgment amount is just inaccurate.
What?
Wrong. When we were in court and the court entered the judgment on March 24th, Mr. Warner's payments, he had made 3 payments that total at $13.55. All 3 of those payments were applied towards those amounts before the judgment entered. The only payment made after March 24th, the judgment entry, was the $224.60 made on March 30th after the hearing, which obviously would not prevent the order of eviction. The out of those 3 payments totaling $13.55, one was received, $300 was received March 4th, 20 days
okay.
before the hearing. The second one for $150 was received March 16th. So what, 8 days before the hearing? And the final that make up that $13.55, the payment of $905 was received 2 days before the hearing, March 20th. So actually, no, March 22nd. So all 3 of those payments totaling $13.55 were applied, were considered. The court found, and primarily the only rent owed prior to April that got included in that judgment was $107.33. The court, per my request, added April's rent in since it was going to come due, and that brought the judgment to the $1586.93 total. So it's pretty simple. I don't understand why Mr. Warner applied for this emergency hearing. Our Stoughton Estates or Sturgis Place Apartments request is that the court enter our order of eviction today during this hearing so that we can complete the eviction process that Sturgis Place is entitled to. And Maria, can you vouch for the accuracy of what I've represented to the court as far as the payments?
Yes, I'm looking at his ledger right now, and everything that you stated is 100% accurate for the payments.
Werner, you did make some payments, but they went toward stuff that happened before the judgment.
March's rent.
You paid March's rent. Well, you also owed April's rent.
How can I owe future payments on a March judgment?
Because the judgment was through April 3rd. And so April's rent was going to be due before the period got there. So I added the 107.33, the 12.55. And so this has all been a shell game. And they still wish to evict you.
Okay.
Yeah, we were here. Everything that Mr. Thornton said was stated here on the record. So yeah, the writ date would have been after April 1st. So I included April's rent, and April's rent is $1,255. It's now April 14th. It has not been paid. 224.60, I think, was paid, but they're still in arrearage.
Okay, but yes, sorry. I'm sorry.
So how much is due right now, Lance?
Well, so it'd be the 1586.93. minus the 224.60 that was paid. But Sturgis Place position is, we would like the order of eviction and proceed with the eviction. The time period for paying the rent has passed.
You are under the impression payments from March.
Are you waiting for a response from me?
No, I'm doing a calculation here. That's 1,326.33, which is basically April's rent, maybe a late fee or something in there and a little bit more. But they're asking for the writ of eviction effective immediately and to have you move out. It would have entered on April 15th. I've been sitting on it pending this hearing because of your letter, but your letter isn't accurate. The facts are not correct.
Well, I was the impression, based on having a hearing on the 17th of March for March's rent. I don't know how it is I possibly missed that April's rent was being added to a March judgment. I don't know how I missed that.
We had a hearing on April 17th. We had another one on April 24th. And I said March 24th. I said it clearly on the record. You owe April's rent. Your rent's expensive, $1,255 a month. It's the most expensive rent in the county. I was here, you were here. We made a record on it. You can go watch it on YouTube if you want to see what was said. I don't believe it's been deleted yet. And you didn't pay it.
Okay, well,
and they wanted to be paid. And now they just want you to move like 5 minutes from now.
okay. Well, since the last court case, I had the opportunity to speak with a lawyer, and my bankruptcy information came to light. And I had an automatic stay put on my debts March 9th of 2022. And Stoughton Place Apartments took me to court on 9/21 of 22 for arrearages, which the automatic stay prevents them from receiving. So this has come into play since our last court hearing, because I had the opportunity, because I'm 60, I got to talk to a lawyer. So that is going to play into this, because this is an illegal act.
Well, so you just get to live there without paying any rent?
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, Your Honor. I'm not expecting to live for free. It came to light to me. I was unaware of this before I spoke to the lawyer, that a stay was put on my account, or an automatic stay was put on all my insecure debt. And I was in contact with Stoughton State's Apartment.
Well, the problem is, then this is new debt. After your if you declare bankruptcy in 2022, it doesn't insulate you from paying rent in 2023.
No, it doesn't.
All this is post bankruptcy. And
yes. So in other words, you're telling me it's a moot point.
Yes, your bankruptcy would have wiped out.
But yet I paid her $2,900. Go ahead.
Landlord tenant debt is sometimes uncertain in bankruptcy court. But he declared bankruptcy okay. But then that doesn't prevent your lease from going forward where you have to pay rent each month, and you did pay a number of months. So you were here, I was here, we were here. I made it clear on the record. I added April's rent. I sent you a copy of the judgment with the dollar amounts in it.
Correct.
You paid $224. You did
No.
not pay $1,500.
Well, that,
And you had to pay the entire amount or you were subject to being evicted. And now they want you to be evicted.
okay, well, uh, that $224 payment that they're saying that I paid for April was for March because it was a March payment. And on the judgment, it was never checked will or will not cause eviction, which I also included in my letter.
Yeah, acceptance of partial payment will not prevent, yeah, I didn't check the box. Well, now it's
Well,
April. You haven't paid April's rent.
Yeah, I always pay my rent the month it's due. It's, you know, I'm getting sent to court 7 days into a month. They don't even do that to homeowners, but because I rent, I'm at the mercy of others.
Let me stop you
And
for
when
a
I
minute.
bring up a point of an act that took place in the past, it was a known fact by others that I had filed bankruptcy and they still went after money and received it, and they shouldn't have.
That's what you're.
Well, that is a
That's what I'm
completely
disputing.
separate, well, it doesn't. Okay, you can dispute it, but it doesn't impress me. After your bankruptcy, you were delinquent in your rent. We had a hearing, we had 2 hearings. I told you how much was due. You said, okay, thank you, I intend to pay it.
Yes.
We have the hearing, then you send me a letter raising all these issues which are not relevant. I'm not gonna do an immediate writ. He's asking for it today. I'm gonna give you until next Wednesday to vacate.
The amount that she
Or you're
paid,
subject to being evicted.
$3,000 is owed back to you.
Stop. I don't know who your legal advisor is, but she's not on camera. I can't hear her. I'm giving you several days. I will stay the writ of eviction. It's already been held since April 5th. Until Wednesday, April 19th. All right. You can, they want it immediately. They're entitled to it. You haven't paid the rent, but that's a bit draconian. But I gave you from April 5th until now. It's actually 14 more days than what would have been on the writ. Go back and watch the hearing on YouTube and you will see what I told you. And
Yes.
all right, this
So
record is complete.
My
Thank you.
stay is, we're not going to do anything with that.
No, you don't. No. Now, I would suggest you may want to get some help. Legal aid is here watching this. But your defenses aren't a defense. Your bankruptcy defense is not relevant. That happened well before this action was made. And I clearly told you how much rent was due and when it was due by, and you didn't pay it. So they want to evict you. Partial payment will not prevent the writ of eviction. You got an additional 2 weeks of grace. All right, Mr. Werner. You
Judge,
need
I'm
to
happy
find a
to
place.
speak with him in a breakout room.
All right, I'll put you in a breakout room with legal aid. You can discuss this with them. Let me get my Mouse is frozen. All right, thank you. Lance, I'll sign it effective the 19th of April.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. So we're done.
Yes, I'll put him in a breakout room with legal aid and they can discuss things.
Okay, thank you.